Hello, and welcome to Why the Podcast.
The podcast where we watch movies and tell people what we think of them and try to figure out why. Just why in general. Why?
Why the hype?
Why the love?
Why the hate?
Why do we care?
Why do we care?
I don't know. Today we're seeing Skyscraper, the movie with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. From what I understand about this movie, it basically feels like a remake of the movie Not Taken. What was the movie with Bruce Willis? It's Christmas. Die Hard. Die Hard. Yeah, it basically just feels like Die Hard, but with The Rock, which I'm okay with. I like Die Hard. It's a great movie.
It is.
And go on. Go ahead.
All I was going to say is we're going to go check this out, and we'll let you know what we think. Overall, the critics... professional critics have been split. It's 50 on Rotten
50%.
Tomato, but over 70% audience score.
So it probably means that people are gonna really like it. I'm not expecting anything too deep. I'm expecting everybody to be pretty surface level characters. I'm expecting a lot of explosions.
A nice, fun, cheesy action movie.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's do it.
So we'll join you after we get back from seeing Skyscraper. See you guys then. We're back. And we just saw Die Hard 3, Rising Revenge. No, we saw Skyscraper. It's basically Die Hard with The Rock.
Basically, yeah, it hit a lot of the same beats and did a lot of the same tropes.
I was impressed by it. It was less Die Hard than I expected, which also means it's less Die Hard than I wanted it to be.
It was a lot of fun, though. I really enjoyed it.
It was overall a lot of fun. It was, though, like 2 steps away from being a kid's film.
It was.
It was one F-bomb away from being a kid's film. Like, seriously.
But, yeah. I would say it's a pretty good family movie. There's very little language.
Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 instances of language. I mean, don't take your 5-year-old. If you want your 5-year-old...
No, that's not what I'm saying, but... For, teens, preteens.
Oh, yeah.
If that's something you enjoy as a family, this is a good option. Because a lot of action movies tend to be really full of as much language as they can cram in there for their rating.
Yes.
Language, and there was no sexual issues in this at all, either.
No, which I was kind of expecting.
I was, too.
The whole setting of the movie, in case you don't know, is... Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is inside of a skyscraper, and just like in Die Hard, the bad guys take over the Nakatomi Plaza, and in this movie, the bad guys take over this big high-rise in Hong Kong. This is, according to the movie, this is the biggest skyscraper ever built. So it's dwarf. It's like 3 times taller than the Empire State Building, which I've been on, and that is high. It's very high in the air.
At the same time, though, I know this is supposed to be that tall. In the movie, it didn't feel that tall.
Yeah, you're not wrong. A lot of... If you saw The Incredibles 2, that kind of where they are for the most of the movie, they can kind of see a lot of the city. It felt like we were about that high up, and that didn't feel very high up in The Incredibles, and here it doesn't feel that high up either.
No.
When we see shots from the ground, it looks great. It looks grand.
But whenever we're on the tower with our hero, looking down at the world below us...
What was his name? Do you even remember? I don't remember what Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's character... I don't remember his name at all.
No.
I also can't remember the name of his wife.
Well, that's one of the problems that I had with this movie. There wasn't a lot of setup to it.
Really? Do you think there's a lot of setup?
Not really.
I think there was a ton of setup. Because we got an entire PowerPoint presentation on the security systems.
Yeah, we got a PowerPoint presentation on the security system, but we don't know much about him and his family. We know his background and what he used to do.
Yeah, I think this is the part that before we get into more details about the movie, did we like it?
I already said I did.
Yeah, I really liked it. It's not like movie of the year or anything, and it's definitely not better than Die Hard. But it was, for what it was, I got a lot more than I was expecting. So go watch it if you like action movies and or The Rock.
I would say it's a very solid action movie.
Take your teens, take your take your girlfriend. Girlfriends take your... I was about to say take your husband. Girlfriends don't... If you have a... You know what? I'm going to leave it there. Go see it. That's the point.
Sure.
Now we're getting to the spoileries. We can freely talk about spoilers unless there's anything else you want to say that's non-spoilery.
No.
Okay. So spoileries it is. So, yeah. There's... In the beginning of the movie, there's this whole PowerPoint presentation.
And the PowerPoint presentation, it shows us the technical side of the building, but it doesn't really show us the building that well.
I mean, I feel like it does show us the building, though. I feel like we see it through... I don't know. I feel like we see it through his eyes. We see it through The Rock's eyes, where... You know, he's going over his system for the one final time, the big key checkpoints. One thing they never talked about, though, which was weird, was, like, cameras. He never talked about that with security systems. Security checkpoints, security guards. The PowerPoint presentation was flawed in many ways, and it only served to tell the audience, hey, here's all the things that will be hacked later in the movie. Yeah,
pretty much. But this was a very grand building. And I don't feel like we were able to explore it well.
Right.
For example, we had this big elaborate gardens right there in the center of it.
Right.
It told us that right at the beginning of the movie. And then, I mean, we're there for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's burning down the whole time.
And then it gets caught on fire.
It gets caught on fire pretty quickly. We're barely there with it intact. And I would have loved to have seen this.
Right.
Because so much about this building is so grand.
Right.
Like something we've never seen before. And they want us to care about the building to some extent.
Yeah.
But it's hard to when you haven't had a chance to explore it in some capacity.
Well, it's sort of like if you watch the movie Tower Heist. Tower Heist does a similar thing. Right? In this case, the heroes of the movie, who are actually villains, we end up seeing the building through their eyes first as just normal employees of the building. And we get to see every floor, we get to see security measures, even subtly we get to see all the ways that all the security checkpoints they have to go through. And we get to see all of the ins and outs of the inner workings of this building. I feel like that building was more fleshed out and more interesting than the skyscraper in Skyscraper.
Because sure, it was gorgeous from the outside.
Oh,
but that's all we really got to see of it is the outside and a futuristic looking penthouse.
Right. I kept thinking back to a movie that does skyscrapers like Mission Impossible. One of the most I think it was Ghost Protocol, but one of the most recent Mission Impossibles has them scaling the skyscraper. I'm trying to remember where it is, but they're scaling this big skyscraper.
That's right.
And to me, that feels high. We have camera angles that show the dizzying heights and everything, and it feels like you're high up. This didn't feel nearly as big as that. Even though they showed that building in the movie and compared it in size, it's like double the size. It didn't feel like that. I think that's a huge point against the movie.
It is. If it's really 3 times bigger than Empire State Building,
right,
we should feel sick.
Right.
Looking down the side of it.
And they don't really show off those angles well. And when they do show those, I think it's because this isn't a real building. So there's no way that we can show this without CG. And when you use CG, because I noticed a lot of times when we look down at the shots, my first initial thought was, ooh, that's a little, oh, no, not really high. It's fake. It's fake. It's not helped by the fact that later in the movie, when they're when they're inside of the actual pearl part of the building, they look down and you're like, oh, that looks fake. But that's because it's supposed to be computer generated, but also it looks fake. I don't know. I just feel like, I think that might be the biggest problem in terms of like it feeling big, is that it looks, the CGI is noticeable.
It is.
I think the characters are not as well fleshed out either.
That was my point earlier.
Yeah.
Was I feel like we really needed more setup. Not for the actual conflict.
Yeah.
We had plenty of setup for that. But The Rock's character, We got at the beginning that really jarring scene
Right.
with how he was in.
The crisis response guy for the FBI.
He was part of that, and he made one little mistake and got a family killed.
Right.
Lost his leg. Got his friends injured.
But he couldn't help that mistake.
He couldn't help it. But that's all the backstory we get for him.
Right.
And we don't really get we get very little information about his family either.
Right.
We know he met his wife because of this crisis.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all we get from them. And because this is all we can get, all we get from them, we have this strong character. He's married, he has a family. There's no conflict there, which I think is refreshing. We don't get many movies like that.
Right.
Say that first of all.
No, you're definitely correct there.
At the same time, though, we have no real conflict, so we have no real character growth.
Well, I think... See, and I wonder if this was the direction... Because it was written and directed and apparently produced by the same guy. I can't remember his name. But I think the idea was that he made one little... They kept harping on this in the beginning. He made one little mistake, right? Mm-hmm. So because he made one little mistake, I think it really feels like I think it's supposed to make you feel like he can't make a mistake here, but everything he does is like he could potentially die here. This could probably go wrong. He doesn't make decisions as if he has a potential mistake. You know, if there
that would have been a good angle for them to focus on, is him feeling like a failure more. We get a hint of that at the beginning when he's so nervous about his presentation.
Right. But then that just goes away instantly, and it's
and then
weird.
From there on, he's this extremely confident army guy, basically.
Right, and I mean, and he was, what was he? I think they said he was in the Marines or something. You know, yeah, he has a military background, but supposedly after that incident in the beginning of the movie with the child being killed and the family dying, he feels responsible for that, and he feels like he messed up. I'm like, okay, great, we're setting up a flawed character, awesome. But then they don't do anything with that flaw. No. Honestly, I don't think it distracted from the movie very much, because I didn't really think about it until after we saw the movie. But because watching it, you're not really there for character growth. You're there to watch Dwayne Johnson
you get caught up in the action pretty easily. Yeah,
which I think is something to be said for the movie. It's not really designed to be more than just an action movie. Which I kind of hate saying that, because I feel like movies should always, like any media should always strive to be more than what it is.
Yeah.
You know? A book shouldn't just be designed to be read and that's it. It should be designed to be consumed, thought about, mulled over, you know.
But this is very much your typical action movie.
It's kind of what I said in the beginning when we introduced the podcast. I was saying that I'm only expecting an action movie. I got a little bit more than that though, which I think makes me feel better about this.
So what did you think about our villains?
Oh, so meh. Just kind of meh. I don't think they're... I think because of what you were saying earlier, the fact that we don't know much about how this building works, because we don't know that, the villains just almost feel OP. Like, they just feel like... They just feel godlike. Right?
Well, I mean, they have control of everything. Yeah. They got control of the entire building, and there's nothing anyone can do about that.
Which doesn't really... I don't know.
It doesn't help for me either that the villains were kind of obvious.
Oh, yeah.
I knew before his friend got that first text that he was going to betray Dwayne.
Yeah.
I knew instantly that he was going to betray his friend.
I feel like his name might have been Dwayne in this movie.
I don't know.
I'm just going to call him Rocket Man.
I knew his friend was going to betray him pretty early on.
Yeah.
It was obvious. Too obvious.
And then I kept saying, hey, by the way, that guy next to the builder of the architect and
he was being
billionaire
sketchy
guy
the whole time.
I was like, he's probably going to betray his boss.
He was being awkward and he was being sketchy.
And he kept wanting to leave the building real quick.
Yeah.
Can we get to the roof now, sir? Can we get to the roof now, sir?
I will say this, though. It was interesting to find out that the creator of the building knew.
Yeah.
He knew he was a bad guy.
Which, to be fair, that's a point, I guess, for... I mean, if obvious bad guy is obvious, I kind of don't understand why you still keep him around.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe I missed something in there.
He was being blackmailed.
Yeah.
He was scared.
Right.
And he had something on them.
Right.
So I think it was kind of a keep your friends close, enemies closer kind of deal.
I will say the whole almost Hall of Mirrors thing at the end, just to kind of jump topics for a minute. I just was thinking about that. That was stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It was. I feel like I've seen it done better before, and his thing is like, these are ultra 4K monitor things that, you know, it's so lifelike and whatever.
Well, the orb was cool.
The orb part is cool.
The orb part's really cool, but I'm not sure what the point of the mirrors were. I think it was their idea of artsy.
Yeah.
Bringing the orb over the top, but the orb on its own is fascinating.
You know what? I will say they didn't do something I expected. I expected them to. I expected in some way the Tony Stark type guy who built the building would be like, this orb is somehow a spaceship or a giant elevator or something. I fully expected that. Something dumb like that, but
no, it was just another room.
It was just another room. Which, if it's supposed to be the biggest tourist attraction in the world, they had very little elevators.
It did seem that way, didn't it?
Yeah, again, that's a design flaw of the building itself. I just feel like the building was not thought out well. Like, Die Hard, every inch of it is kind of thought out because every piece is designed to do what it's supposed to do. You know, I mean, he uses things from staplers to, you know, just people's shirts to scotch to fix stuff. Speaking of scotch, how did The Rock find alcohol in the middle of the work area of the building? Where did he get it from?
It is a little concerning, isn't it?
Like, who was drinking on the job? Because at least in Die Hard, I think he gets it from, like, somebody's, like, desk drawer. And I'm like, that makes sense. But here, no, he just finds a random bottle of alcohol to pour on his wound. I hate drawing similarities to Die Hard, but this movie really wants you to remember Die Hard.
It does a lot of things that Die Hard does.
But I would still argue that Die Hard does a lot of this better.
Oh, I agree.
Is there anything that this does that better than Die Hard? Your stunned silence is very reassuring. I really can't think of anything other than his marriage is okay and he's doing this for his wife and kids. But in Die Hard, his marriage isn't okay, but he still does it for his wife. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I think that's a toss-up. You have to decide which do you think is a better story? The guy who's about to be divorced, you know, still loving his wife and trying to save her, or the guy who's happily married trying to save his wife?
I think I like the happily married better.
Okay.
Because the biggest reason for that is because in situations like with Die Hard,
right,
where they're about to get divorced and stuff, this brings them together. Another movie later on, they're broken up again. It meant nothing.
Yes, and it does happen in Die Hard.
So that's what bugs
right.
me about most we're divorced, getting divorced, kind of breaking up kind of storylines.
Yeah.
Is usually they break up anyway. So that whole,
what's it matter?
That whole thing that they just went through, in the end, it meant nothing because they broke up again anyway.
In the end, it doesn't even matter.
So yeah, I like this better.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. I think I like the other one better because I think it shows who John McClane is as a character.
I think it gives more room for growth in some ways.
I think so too. Because you're right, there's no growth with The Rock. There really isn't.
I think there was places where there could have been, besides having a faulty marriage, but they didn't take advantage of it.
Well, oh, speaking of taking advantage, what was the thing with the tablet in the beginning? Because, like, he got the tablet, it controlled stuff, and then in a cool twist, he's like, hey, I saved the tablet. It wasn't stolen.
Then a few seconds later, he loses it.
Yeah, and he loses it. So, like, what was the point of this? To me, there was no point in this other than his friends.
It just added in one extra scene. He learned his friend was betraying him one scene sooner, I guess.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
His friend gets a death scene, I guess. Sort of. I don't know. There's a lot of... This movie is by no means like an Oscar-worthy, perfect film at all.
But it's so much fun.
It was
fun. It will
fun.
leave you on the edge of your seat, wondering if the characters are going to survive.
Right. I actually did wonder that a couple of times.
There was several scenes that, you know, it's a cheesy action movie. In the back of your head, you kind of know they're going to make it through. But at the same time, they were able to convince me that these characters might not actually make it. Which is a good thing when we're talking about action movies.
I kind of expected a little girl to die.
Yeah.
I was kind of expecting that. Just side note, her name, still don't remember what her name was, but I swear every time The Rock said it, I thought he was saying Charizard. Charizard, are you okay? Just like, well, she should be. She's a fire type.
We need to pay more attention to names.
Well, I tried. I did try, but they literally say the kid's name like once in the beginning, and then it was just the kids. She said her son's name whenever they went back from the pandas. Also, what was it like? What did his friend expect to happen? He gave the kid poison candy so he gets sick, and so they went home. Like, did you expect them to go to the hospital, or did you expect them? Like, I don't know. Like, as a
did
mother,
he give him the candy?
I mean, that was what was implied. They weren't supposed to be there.
No, see, the reason they weren't supposed to be there is he gave them the special wristbands so they could stay at the zoo after hours to watch the pandas. The pandas being fed. That's why they weren't supposed to be there.
Yeah,
he got the candy from somewhere else.
What does this kid pick up a random piece of candy and shove it in his mouth? He didn't look that stupid. He looked like a fairly smart kid. An asthmatic kid, but still, I mean, you know, asthma makes you smart. I think that, look, if movies have taught me anything, asthma and glasses make you smarter. You know?
Okay.
I mean, the villain's plan, I don't know why. Also, speaking of the villain's plan, at the end of the movie, it's revealed that he's got a flash drive, or that the good guys have a flash drive that has all the names of all the bad guys' associates. That's what the bad guys want.
That and their bank accounts.
Yeah, and their bank account numbers.
So I see why they want it back.
But at the same time, I was thinking, like, this guy, Dwayne's boss, is like a billionaire. He's got tablets everywhere and cameras everywhere. He literally puts up the names and the numbers on the screen for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to see. Couldn't he just take a picture of those? I feel like just doing that and then just like emailing it to himself later. I feel like, you know, just send a mass email with all those pictures to yourself.
That part was confusing. The reason they wanted this particular flash drive is because using this particular flash drive, they could trace how he got this information to begin with and somehow change it before the cops got to it.
Right, it didn't.
It was weird. I'm not sure how that's supposed to make sense.
Well, he was like, "This is the master hard drive." Okay, well, I get it that this is what you use to track it to begin with, but can't you just, you know, press the screenshot button a couple times? You have the same information. The information is not going to change. Yeah, sure, they can...
I mean, I think that was supposed to have been the idea, is that they could change that information somehow.
Right, but if they change the information on the drive, if no one's using the drive, what use is it? Do they want to see what information he has? Why not just change all the information to begin with? Why not get rid of the money? Why? I don't know. There's just so many flaws with... I find myself asking why.
This plan seems kind of elaborate for just getting a flash drive.
Yeah, he wants a flash drive, so I'm going to burn down the building. Oh, okay. Well, that's a little... I don't know why you want to do that.
I will say this. The way they set it on fire.
That was cool.
That was unique. Yeah. I have not seen that done before.
I haven't seen that done either.
I liked that. That was creative. That was a unique way to make it happen.
They
How feasible it is...
Yeah, they said that I think it was like CO2 or something that they used to put out fires. Like they have like a part of their fire suppression system is they have CO2 foam or something like that. Yeah. And they put all this chemical in this one floor, and I guess when it activates with CO2, it creates sparks in an explosion.
Yeah.
And it caught the whole building on, well, it caught one floor of the building on fire.
The whole floor on fire,
which was,
instantly.
it was a cool idea.
That was. I haven't seen that done before.
Right.
It was a pretty unique way to make your scheme happen fast. Because just like that, setting off one smoke detector, and they set the entire floor on fire all at once.
Right. I mean, that was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. That was definitely pretty cool. But I don't know. There were cool stunts, I guess. When I wasn't looking at CG the whole time, there were some cool stunts.
There were.
And there were some just cool, interesting parts. A lot of it felt very video gamey. Just kind of like the leaps that they made, and like I was like, oh,
the way the characters got separated.
Yeah, they got separated.
The props The Rock uses to get from one thing to the next, it was all hilariously convenient.
Duct tape.
It was very video game like.
Yeah, it was definitely very video gamey, which is not a bad thing, but it kind of makes me want to have a video game of this. I think that would be useful. Not useful, fun. Video games aren't that useful. All in all, I guess, I mean, I enjoyed my time, but upon further review, there's really not much I can think about with this movie that, like, I was like, oh, I really liked this. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I can't really pinpoint something that I really liked about it.
That's because there's not one particular thing worth going for.
Right.
But if you're looking for a fun action movie, this was a lot of fun.
If you just want to turn your brain off and just watch an action movie, just...
Isn't that what action movies were designed for?
But I guess, I mean, like, the gold standard is Die Hard. Like, I mean, I could be proven wrong, and I could find an action movie that I think is better than Die Hard, but they're either way too serious. Like, I grew up watching The Bourne Identity, and the Bourne movies, to me, are just way too serious. Yes, they're cheesy, action-filled movies, but they're very serious. You know, Die Hard 1, it has humor to it. It has a good tone. They know that you're watching an action movie, and so the juxtaposition of, you know, I've got a machine gun, ho ho ho, that's funny. That's just very, very funny. You know, him talking like a cowboy and talking about like Western movies earlier in the movie sets up the fact that that's how he sees himself, is as a cowboy, right? None of this setup in the beginning for The Rock makes an appearance again.
No.
Like, he's not even, like, unsure. I mean, he maybe he was supposed to be unsure of himself during some of those scenes.
But it didn't come across that way.
No, it came across like, oh, I've got a plan, but I'm going to pretend to be unsure. Maybe that's how we should have been watching it. He's supposed to be unsure, but that's super weird if he is, because they did not portray that at all.
No, it didn't feel like he was any more unsure than anybody else in the world would be jumping from a building with only a small rope. I mean, you should be unsure about that. But it wasn't like the kind of unsureness that was portrayed towards the beginning of the movie that we would expect.
I also sort of want to say that because of the amount of time that he spent running from the cops, I feel like if he'd just gone into custody, his wife and daughter were still safe, or his wife, daughter, and son were still safe. They could have stayed in that floor. He could have walked the police through getting up there to where the bad guys were, saved his kids, and then let the police handle it from there. Like, unlike Die Hard...
Clearly the police were reasonable.
Yeah, they were...
That's exactly what his wife did.
Right, that's... So, like...
The police were very reasonable, because his wife did this exact thing that you're talking about.
Right.
She was like, look, here's the deal. I can prove what I'm talking about. Pay attention. And they did. And she walked them right through how to...
I mean, it took her all of, what, 15 minutes to do it? Mm-hmm. Right? And in that amount of time, that's the time he spent, like, a good while climbing that freaking crane. And then he spent another good while jumping through the building. And then another good while.
Honestly, speaking of the crane.
Yeah.
That felt more frighteningly high than most of the stuff he was doing on the building.
That's what I agree. That felt like, oh man, he is high up. Like, there's one scene where they, like, showed the dizzying camera height, and I was like, oh, that's cool. That's really high. But then that was the only time.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. I'm just, I don't know. This movie is just kind of meh. It was enjoyable, but I'm not gonna rush out to watch it again. I'm probably not even gonna get it on DVD. But if it's on TV, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna enjoy it. It's not a classic at all.
But I think it's worth the watch.
Yeah.
But don't take our word for it. Go see it for yourself.
Go see it. Go use your whatever movie pass thing you use, like Cinemia or Movie Pass or AMC Gold Club Standard member with Sam's Club discount thing that you use.
Or
Watch
if
it.
you have money, just pay for it.
Yeah, you could also do that, but who pays for things?
Wait till it comes on DVD. Wait till it hits Netflix.
Wait till it
Either
hits
way,
Netflix.
Go see it for yourself. Decide for yourself if this movie is worth seeing and why, or why not.
Tell us why. Is it worth getting a 50-50 score from critics? Is it worth getting a 70% from audience members? Tell us why. Is it worth the hate? Is it worth the love? Let us know in the comments down below, and I guess we'll see you whenever we watch the next movie.
Bye.
Bye.